Hey everyone, Melissa here with the Creative Season and another fun watercolor project. Okay, we're going to do something new. We're going to put some gesso on regular note card paper and then do some really fun watercolor scenes. And I'm sorry this one got a little bit cut off. It shows up beautifully when we paint together, but using a couple of colors, we're going to go back and forth, create some really fun watercolor scenes over gesso, which is a different feel. It has a different texture. It really shows off the joy of blending colors and also the magic of just letting the paint fall where it will. This is a wonderful way to create some beautiful stationery to send out for people in your life this winter. So join with me, grab some note card paper, gesso, and watercolors, and let's go. Okay everyone, so we are back and we are going to do something new today. So I have a bunch. I was cleaning and I found all of these. They're just paper stationery cards. You can find them at Michael's or Joann's or any store for just a couple of dollars. The problem with these guys is if I try to paint on them, there is no texture. This is not watercolor paper. It is just cardstock. So it can really, it doesn't work really great. We need really some texture for watercolor paper. So what I thought to do some watercolor and some other projects that I'm gonna have, we're gonna just add some texture, our own texture to these cards. We're gonna do that by grabbing some gesso. I have a big thing of white gesso here. This is Artist Loft. It is, I believe, the Michael's brand, but you can get smaller ones. I just sometimes, when I'm getting into gesso, I use a lot of it. So I have just an old health insurance card thingamajigger. So I am just going to, and it's actually been a little while, I've got to actually make sure it's still good. It's thick, which is actually, I like my gesso a little bit thicker. Sometimes it's thin, but I think I left the top open a little bit. So I am going to go ahead, let me bring this down here. And I know it's starting to get dark out, so we're just going to do this part today and then let them dry. But I am just going to start scraping some gesso over the paper, and you don't need to do it super thick. It doesn't need to cover the whole thing. That actually makes it kind of fun to not have it color the whole thing. We're going to be doing some really fun art on these, some floral art. I'm going to put some, verses or poetry. You can do Bible verses as well. It's going to be, I think, really cute. So you can see too, I'm not putting this on super thick, but I am adding a little bit of texture. If you want to do some on the back, if you want to just do the whole thing, go for it. This will still be light too. We can totally do that, or you can leave the back blank so you can do some writing. Even do like a stamp is what I think I'll end up doing on the back. So once again, I'm just going to go ahead and just texturizing everything. Kind of actually fun. Almost feels like you're putting frosting over something. And this is just a really kind of, can be rather rhythmic to do this after a day. You don't have to think about too much, but I'm just going to do a few more of these. And again, I'm going to let them dry and they will be ready tomorrow to come back and create some really lovely art. Now, if it is early in the day for you, or of course, because I'm filming, I just want better light, so I'll film probably in the morning tomorrow. But you can, of course, you can just wait for them to dry. It does not take this too long to dry, and then we'll come back and create on here, and it doesn't take too long to dry. Okay guys, so I will see you in just a little bit. Okay, so now we are back here and we are going to be coming in and doing some painting on our gesso cards. I have done a couple and I just wanted to show you before we start off. These are going to be really lovely landscapes with some floral fields. You'll notice too, so I've got very clean watercolors. We don't have tons of colors. Even in this one with the florals that we're going to do, we have just a very limited palette. And I think this is really going to add to the really beauty of these cards. You can see too how the paint is often broken up by the gesso, which adds just another layer of depth. That gesso is going to really give way to some cloud formations and some mountains and hills. So let's go ahead and start painting. This is going to be, I just want to encourage you to be really free with your paint. The gesso kind of creates a different method of what it feels like and looks like. And I'm hoping that the light here is going to be really, really good. I've got just moved to a slightly different place in the studio this morning. So I'm going to go ahead with this one, and we're going to work on a couple at a time because, for example, for the floral field, for example, we have to give some time for drying. So let's go ahead, grab your paintbrush, and we're going to grab a nice light blue. I'm going to be working with a lighter blue this morning. So if you have like a cobalt blue or a cerulean blue, that's going to be really, really nice. And keep it watered down, and go ahead and even add some more water. And then I'm going to go ahead up here and I'm just going to start laying down a sky. Now your gesso may not extend all the way to the ends of your paper. Mine did not. And that's fine. Again, letting that water, the color kind of go where it will. I am going to go about a third of the way down. Actually, with this one, this is going to be one of our flower fields. Let's go about 2/3 of the way down. 2/3 of the way down and kind of move it over. You'll notice again that gesso may be opening up some opportunity for some clouds. So what I'll do too is I'll almost take the water or the watercolor and go in different places, almost envisioning some of those clouds, and then just gonna let it dry and do what it will. Now that we have that done, I'm gonna go ahead and then grab some green. So I'm gonna go ahead and I've got a nice permanent green here, and then on the bottom, I'm gonna lay down that permanent green. If the blue and the green merge a little bit, not a big deal. This is going to be one of our flower fields. So that is going to just be fine because you're going to have lots of splatters with those beautiful fields of flowers. You also notice I'm even leaving some white areas in. And with this one, because we're going to be layering it, I'm going to go ahead and let that dry. We'll end up coming back and adding some more detail with this one. You'll notice too, we're not taping these down today. So just go ahead and move that one off the side to dry and grab another one. And then with this one, for example, let's go ahead. I still have green right now on my my brush. So I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and do some mountains. Some mountains, we're going to go ahead and do green here. Of course, we're going to anticipating spring, right? When everything turns green. I'm going to do one right up here, a nice higher one before we do our background. It's always interesting to keep our landscapes, whatever you're doing, we don't want it to be halfway. Like you wouldn't want the horizon line to be halfway in the middle. You want to create interesting angles. So either just a third of the area of sky, or maybe 2/3. Going a little bit more extreme is always going to create a more interesting angle, which I always think is a lot of fun. So go ahead and grab some more green, maybe a little bit darker this time, and set it in. But don't paint the whole thing. We're going to add in some blue, our sky, but we're going to also add in some blue to the ground. We're going to keep everything fairly wet. You'll notice too the gesso tends to capture pigmentation and that saturation of paint, and almost kind of it petals up together. That's part of the fun of this. It also can be a little bit aggravating if you're looking for something really exact. So let go of any expectations of creating an exact that you can kind of order the watercolor around, because the gesso is taking some of that control away from us, and that's okay. You can see it too where it's just creating some really different appearances, almost like rock formations, right? So this is fun. It's just a new way of letting that watercolor and dried gesso work. Now go ahead and grab some blue. I've got some nice blue here. I've got, again, that more of a flat, lighter blue on my brush today, and I'm going to go ahead and just lay that down. I am going to come up pretty close to my mountains without touching them if I'm able to do that. And it looks like it's going to let me. I'm going to go all the way down here as well, and over this peak. And again, we are only using a couple of colors, and it kind of already starts to look like, isn't that interesting how with that different texture, you have this very interesting landscape happening. Now go ahead and grab some more blue and come back where, especially where you have the areas of green, and lay that blue right inside. That's going to add in some shadows. We're not adding a new color in too, we're adding another more of the same, which is going to create that landscape with a color scheme that sings. And you know how I feel about that. I love to create paintings with that color harmony that just seems to sing together. So I'm going to move up in here. I'm going to come back. I'm going to grab some more green, and I'm just going to go ahead, especially if you think, well, now I've got a blue mountain. Go ahead and just lay some green down, or maybe it's a river. That's the other thing. You can kind of start to see different things within your landscape. Now, normally with the landscapes, the things that are farther away, they look more faint, and the things that are closer up, they look more detail, right? So let's go ahead and add in a little bit of detail here, right at the front of our painting. I'm going to just go ahead and add in a darker layer. I'm going to add in some blue as well, so we get the combination just right in here. I'm going to maybe make another little mark down the side, and then I think if I'm able to, I'm even going to see if I can even create some, almost looks like brush coming out in the front, right? Just some details. I'm not too worried about it though. We might have just a real distant looking landscape, but isn't that fun? Now you can see where you could get a different look for everyone. I think this is a lot of fun. This is a rather interesting looking piece, and again, 2 colors. We're going to set that one aside to dry now. You can see we're just moving through these fairly quick, and it's a really fun way. You can create a whole set of stationery, really lovely stationery that has its own look to it. So I'm just making sure we've got this up here. Okay, let's do one more before we take a little bit of a break here. This time we're going to go ahead and do the mountains again. We're going to do 3 peaks, so let's make 3 mountains, and we are going to have a beautiful yellow sunrise in the back. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to do 1 mountain here. I'm going to do the second mountain right over here. And I am going to take that one right over here. Now this one I think I'm going to go taller. Make sure they're not completely even. We want them to be a little bit different, and we can certainly widen them out too. So once again, I'm going to grab some green, and you might want to play with a different color green. If you just, again, this is a great way to look at the different colors on your palette. And I'm going to bring in some color, just laying it down. And then I am going to, again, laying down a little bit more color here, right? As we moving around, that was pretty dark. I can just pick up some water. Again, you're noticing the gesso is going to dictate to where that water went, or where the paint wants to settle down. And you could even, depending on if you want to be creative, you could even kind of manipulate that too by moving around your painting. And letting it drip. Again, I just got the table, the watercolor, I can just dry it off, but that can be really interesting too. Now we're going to let that drip a bit around. That wants to move that way. That's great. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'll put a little bit down here at the bottom. Go ahead and wash off your brush really good, and let's grab a yellow. You either grab a yellow or a gamboge, which is a yellow with almost a little bit more hint of an orange in it. And let's just lay down that yellow as if we've got the sunrise coming up. Now that's pretty bold. I'm going to actually grab some water and just lighten it up just a little bit. I'm going to bring that around. I'm bringing my yellow close to the green but not touching it. And I think I'm actually going to bring in a touch of orange. I've got a cadmium orange, which is an opaque, right? It doesn't play as nicely. It tends to take over, but that's okay. I'm just going to dab a little bit of orange right in here. And then I'm actually going to go down here and put in the front of my painting, let's put some yellow down here. And that yellow and green always looks so nice together. We're going to darken this painting up as well, but we're going to let that first shade, actually this is going to be more of a lighter color. Okay, So we've got that going on there. And now I'm going to let that dry. Now this one, the gesso, is a little bit more dramatic in the way that I laid it down. And that's fine though. That changes the look of the painting, and we may come back. I may even bring in some micron pen and do some other changes with this, but this is a great setting. We're going to let that dry, and then we're going to come back. Okay, I'm going to see you here in just a minute. Okay, so we are back. So let's start putting some details on these, and we're going to do a few more cards as well. If you may have, I think I had gessoed up, gosh, maybe about not quite a dozen of these, but it's fun to do these in batches. So hopefully you have several that you can continue painting, and I'm hopefully going to just give you some ideas of creating your own collection of these stationery cards that a lot of us use for stamping that maybe you're new stamping or maybe not so much these days, right? So we're going to go ahead and start with the painting. Pull out the painting that you have, where we have our sky that fills up about 2/3 of the way, and then our grassy area fills up about 1/3 of the way. Now you are going to need a piece of paper that to cover, so because we're going to do some splattering. So I'm just reaching behind me and getting some other paper. It doesn't have to be real big, but you do want it to maybe cover all the blue spaces. So I'm just going to grab a couple pieces of scrapbook paper that I have, and I am actually going to maybe put about halfway up. And I think with these colors, I'm using a lot of clean, what I'm going to just group yellows, blues, greens, and a little bit of red for this series. So these flowers in this field, I am just going to start splattering. And I'm actually perhaps going to cover up part of the page. We'll have just different colors, let's say, of the field. So I've got yellow over here. You'll notice I don't have anything don't have it taped down. I'm not too worried about things getting too close together per se. I'm going to bring this in just a little bit better so you can see that. But you can see how small those splatters are. And let's go ahead and grab some orange, or maybe if you have a red, I'm going to grab some orange. I've got a cadmium orange. I'm just letting it dry for a quick second. I'm going to put some cadmium orange here in the middle. Some's getting over here, but that's fine. I'm going to go grab some cadmium red. And that is a pretty big red. I'm going to actually mix it with a little bit of the orange and get some water in there. And then come over on this side and go ahead and splatter some red there. Going to come back in, get it a little bit wetter. And I am going to come back and now some more splatters, and maybe even a little bit harder to just get a different shape. The more water, you're going to have some bigger splatters, and the closer you get to, you'll have some different colored splatters on there. Okay, I am now going to once again grab that yellow, and I'm going to do some yellow splatters over here. And I'm going to get a little bit of that orange and come back over here. Not as much. Okay, that's really fun. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to take off my paper here. And I'm going to set that to the side because I want that to dry for just a minute. So let's go ahead and look at our other paper. So on this one, you notice when it dried, because of that gesso, we had that green that just went right up in the top. And I'm like, well, darn it, right? We didn't want that to happen. So you know what? I think I'm going to fix that. And if you have a micron pen, if you could, what we're going to do is we're just going to go ahead. I'm going to use a micron pen here. I'm just going to extend my mountain up a little bit higher. I am going to use a micron pen on this one. I'm not going to do it on all of them. And just to do some sketchies here, moving that around, making sure you can see that. And then we're going to just add in that color. Now, where that nice bright yellow is, I don't want to interfere with that. And so I'm going to go ahead, once again though, I'm going to even maybe take my micron pen at the front. Maybe I'll do some little, almost a sense of like little patches of grassy areas where we'll do some darker green. And then up at the front here, I might even do some longer grass. Maybe we'll do a couple of flowers. You know, we could, if we wanted to, almost make this semblance of a path right here. You know, path going, just moving out into the beautiful wilderness, right? This wilderness area. Maybe there's a walking path. So you see, we're going to just add in a little bit of detail there. Now that I have that sketching down, I think to myself, now with this path, maybe I want to add just a little bit of a warm brown. And so I'm going to go ahead, pick up a little bit of brown and just come over here and create that path there. Let it get smaller as we get more into the distance, and maybe out here I'll just do a little bit, right? Making sure you can see that. I'll bring that up a bit. And you can see I'm even going to hold that down because that gesso is spinning the paper. And don't worry, we're gonna take care of that too. Maybe I'll even do a little bit of the path up here. Maybe we even have a bit of a winding path. Where else do you see it? Maybe up here a little bit. Just an idea of where that path may be going. Now I'm going to grab my green and really just playing off of where the gesso is, where the paint has dried. I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to just go ahead and paint over where that yellow was. I'm going to come up over here on these areas as well. And because the grass, whether it's the wave of the wind or the different areas of the grass or the shadowing, if that's happening, we're going to just go ahead and create some different areas of darker green to show just the depth, right? Most hills, when you look at them, mountains, they're not just one flat color. You're seeing a lot of different colors. Plus, if it was, sunrise or sunset, we're going to have a lot of darker areas as well, where there is that's hidden from the light. So let's even go ahead and make this a little bit darker in here, and even where our path is, we'll come up where we have these areas of just that sketching that I did. Isn't that lovely though? It's a little bit abstracty, which is fun, and yet you can still very much clearly see this beautiful mountain scene, which I think is just really, really nice. Now I'm going to pick up some of that yellow again because that yellow that we have in the sky, I do want to have a little bit in the ground too. So we're just moving it around a bit here. I might put a little bit on my path and maybe to where the light might be catching. I'm going to just move this yellow in here too. It's just really a really lovely, simple piece. Now, if you wanted to get just a little bit more of a hint of color in there, be careful not to hit the green. But if you wanted to grab even a little bit of the orange that we had been using for the flowers, I might even just put a little bit up here, put a little bit in here, and even just a little bit on my road. Once again, marrying all those colors together so that they just dance. And that's looking really lovely, right? I'm going to pull that back so you can see that at a distance. And it just really looks like you've got that golden sun that is maybe coming up. Maybe I'm thinking maybe this is a sunrise as we're starting to see the sun just start to explode behind those really beautiful mountains. If you want to do one more dip into your green, and then come up, because there would definitely be more shadowing on this side, right? And then let's just go ahead and add a little bit more of that darker color. And if you want to even pick up some brown, pick up a bit of brown, get it nice and wet, and also maybe lay down just a little bit of brown in the shadows as well. And that's looking really, really nice. I really love that. That's actually a beautiful one. All right, let's go ahead and set that to the side so it'll dry. Make sure if you notice any splotches like that, I have a bit of brown splotches right here. I'm just gonna take some more green and just even them out. And then just let it do its thing. And then just move it around just like that. Isn't that pretty? That is actually looking really, really nice. It looks like we really labored over that landscape, but actually we didn't. We got this, completed this in just a couple of minutes, and what a beautiful note card this is going to be. Isn't that going to be just lovely to send to someone? All right, I'm going to set this over to the side, and I am going to go ahead and I'm going to grab another one, that one that I had that was all the blue and the green. And I have to say, I'm kind of liking this one as it is. I'm not wanting to do too much to it. I'm going to take a little bit of the blue and I'm going to get my blue wet, and I'm maybe just going to even out a little bit over here where it almost looked like there was a muddling. I don't want muddling, so we'll just put a little bit of blue here. But it almost looks like we've got some clouds forming, so I don't want to really take those away. Almost look a cloud formation here and back here. I will go ahead and grab some green and come down on the side here just to delineate those two mountains from one another. But I kind of love the way that this one is looking all on its own. I'm going to mix some blue in with the green. And then I'm going to come down here and just maybe show some emphasis on the greenery that's coming down off the mountain. And I'm going to leave that alone for the most part. With this one, I'm not going to do too much. I'm not going to use the micron pen on it. I think this is really nice as it is. If you want to add a little bit more green just up here, you certainly could, and just showing the different color variations of this mountain behind it. Other than that though, I think this is really, really nice. Again, a bit abstract-y. It also looks like we really labored to make a very nice mountain. Beautiful landscapes. And I am going to go ahead and just hold it down so you can see that paint. I want it to go down. I don't want it to go up into my sky. So if you notice your gesso is leading the paint to maybe go up in the sky, just hold it for a few minutes. Let that paint drip down. Maybe you have watercolor paper down below to catch it, or just the table, and then you can wipe it up. And I'm going to go ahead and set this one to the side now and let that dry. I've got it up just a little bit. Now, okay, let's bring this one back because we definitely want to add a little bit more detail. I want to add in some more stems, and then I want to add a little bit more to my excuse me, to my flowers as well, to create some depth. So I'm going to grab some green on my brush, and let's start by, let me bring this in just a little bit. I'm going to go ahead and just create some stems and some leaves, just not too many, but even in the back we'll do some short stems out here, just little itty bitty ones, just like that. And then up at the front, some larger ones. And you know, we can make them, they do not need to be real distinct. I also want to come up here and just that one spread out a little bit more, but that's okay. Again, we've got that gesso. Even some stems higher up, they do not need to touch the bottom by any means. Over here, you can add some little pointy leaves, maybe even just some wild grass. It doesn't need to be real distinct. And yes, our paper is bending a bit. That's okay. Oh, that one got a little bit more green than I meant to. So I can blot it, or I can just kind of let it play too. Maybe I'll blot it just a bit. If I think I have a piece of paper around here. I do. All right, so let me go ahead even and just take this one. See how actually, maybe we'll actually leave that alone. We'll let that dry because it's actually, look at how it's creating some tendrils into the flowers. So maybe play with it. If you have some runaway paint, allow your brush to create some leaves, but then allow just the gesso and the paint to mix. That's really the fun of this too, is we're really having a really good time letting the magic happen. We're directing it, but we're not in control of it. Sometimes that's life, right? We get to direct things, but we recognize there's so much in life we do not have control over, right? And just being able to go with the flow, to make lemonade when we're served up lemons, that is sometimes the life lesson that I learn again and again. It's good to be flexible. Okay, what is that funny? I think it might, it's not, I don't think it's a proverb from the Bible, but blessed are the flexible, they'll never be broken. There's something to be said about that, isn't there? Okay, now look what we have going on here. We almost have a little bit of a path, which is fun. I love that. And it looks like we have almost a splattering of flowers. And so what I want to do is I want to emphasize some of those colors just a little bit more. But I also maybe want to let it dry. Let me see where our time is. This is fun. Okay, so because I know if I splatter, I'm going to get some color into that paint. So I'm going to set this aside. Let's start on a fourth one. If you have another one that you want to do, this one has pretty heavy on the gesso. And you know, we've been doing them all horizontal, but let's say if we did one, ooh, this one is heavy on the gesso. Vertical, that's what we're going for here. I'm actually going to get a little bit of a bigger paintbrush, and let's let's see what we want to do with this one. I'm going to get a blue, and I have a couple blues mixed in. Mostly it's cobalt blue, but I think I got a bit of my phthalo blue, so it might be a bit dark. I'm going to lay in a sky here, and maybe I'll just put, we'll go ahead and just lay it in up high like this. And maybe, what do I want to do with this one? Maybe we'll do another field of flowers. We'll see. Let's see how this might, it almost looks like we might have a path going on here with the way the gesso is. So maybe a mountain range in the back. Let's see what we might do. I'm going to do about 1/3 of the sky, and then let's go ahead and grab some yellow and put some yellow in here so that can mix in. And I'm going to grab some more green. And I think we're going to lay it down for perhaps another field of flowers. I'm thinking that's what we might do here. And I may not get to that one here in this recording, but we'll see. But again, you can see too how you can kind of start playing with it, letting the gesso kind of have its way with leading that watercolor. I'm going to put just a little bit of blue in my green and come back through here. I need a little bit darker area here, and that way too I can come in and maybe I'll start doing just some light splattering of flowers right on here. We'll see. We will see. It almost looks like a plain too, right? Where I don't have any mountains. It's just going off into the distance, just a huge, lovely field. Okay, so we'll go ahead. We're going to set that to the side for now. So I'll set that one to the side. I'm going to bring this one back, and let's finish up this lovely field of flowers. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to come back with the yellow, that cadmium yellow light, and let me grab my paper that was working. Gotta let this guy dry. My cover paper. Here we are. And I think I'm actually going to lay it at an angle here so that I can actually go a little bit higher up, so we can show even some of these flowers that maybe are just blowing all over the place. I've got that yellow. I'm actually going to dip it too into the orange. Again, this is just a very light splattering. So that's really fun. I like that a lot. Moving a little bit closer. Now I think what I'll do too is I'll go ahead and dip my paintbrush in, and then down here too I could even just put in some drops to show flowers closer up, right? Again, we're not doing tons of detail here. And I'm even maybe connecting, we've got some lupines here perhaps. Those are lovely. So I'm going to lay that there, and then on the other side I'm going to go ahead and do just another splattering of the bolder colors. And we're going to definitely know that they're flowers, right? They're very obviously lovely wildflowers, but it's almost like an impressionist style of painting. Lots and lots of dots. Now you could certainly come back. The gesso has enough sturdiness that you can come back and do more and more layers. That's just completely up to you. And I'll do just a few of here. Be careful. So I took my little splatter off, and you can see too though how you do start to get some splattering up in my sky. So I'm going to go ahead and leave that, because if I dab it with the gesso underneath, it will smear, and I would prefer not to do that. So I'm going to back that up now, and now you can see here we have we've got really a couple of really nice paintings. We've used micron pen on one of them, and that was really fun, and be able to create, you can see that's still drying. And then we have this fourth one too, where that one's actually already starting to dry pretty good. And you can start to see where if I went ahead right now even and took let's even do some blue flowers to match that sky a little bit. I could even start splattering in here. Now it's wet. So this is actually good, and you can see when it's not quite dry all the way, you'll get more of a water stained approach. So I'm going to let that sit. I'll let it completely dry, and then I'll do, when it's completely dry, another layer of splattering, and actually that will look really nice. It'll layer up beautifully. So I hope you have enjoyed this and gotten some ideas for how you can create a beautiful set of note cards to mail with just your old note cards that you may have had lying around. Maybe you found them like I did from a day back when I was used to do some stamping years ago. Also, I wanted to show you, if you have, like, you noticing too, these were some cards that I had gessoed, and they are all nice and flat. They were very bendy when I had not, after they had dried, and I just took a couple of books and just laid them for about 12 hours on underneath, laid the note cards underneath the books, and they flatten out beautifully. And now that they flattened out, I can come back and I can, on the back, I can go ahead and I will probably maybe pull out my stamps and put a stamp, or just, you know, by Melissa or whatnot, or just have some extra space for when I write my note cards. I can fill up the whole thing, and I always need a little bit of an extra space when I write. I write kind of in big sprawling words. So okay, I hope you have enjoyed this. Don't throw out those note cards if you find them. Use them with your watercolor and a bit of gesso. It's a very fun project and really kind of opens and loosens up your watercolor skill as well. So I can't wait to see you guys and paint with you again. I will see you next Wednesday.